Good morning again, everyone. Wonderful to see you this morning. It's wonderful to be here with you this morning. I thank you for joining me. I hope I find you well this morning and looking forward to a wonderful day. Um, Yesterday, Debbie and I and our children and grandchildren went over to Yorktown Beach, which is like a 15-minute drive from here at home, and went down to take the kids and go play in the river. The York River um, is about 80 degrees right now. The York River dumps into the Chesapeake Bay, which then dumps into the Atlantic Ocean. And so, right where Yorktown is at the mouth, just at the mouth of the York River, and it's Yorktown Bay. That's where George Washington defeated Cornwallis, and the American experiment, the United States of America, launched its republic. So, having said all that, so Debbie and I were there playing with the kids, and we decided we would go across the beach and up on the walk path and take a little walk, in the morning because we should walk. And we came across a man very shortly, a man with his dog. And I spoke to him, good morning, how are you? And he said, I'm good. Good morning, how are you? And there were some men, a man and a woman up on the hill across the street from us that had weed eaters, and they were weed eating the hill. And the man said to me, his name is Chester. And he said to me, he said, well, that's probably the best way to do that, right? And I said, yeah, that's the best way to do that I know of. Back in the day when I was a young child, back when I was 8 or 9, there was no such thing as a weed eater. So we used to pull the mowers up and down the hill with a rope. But nowadays, a weed eater is the best way to do it. He said, oh, yeah, okay, great. So I said, well, have a good morning and we'll see you. And Debbie and I turned to walk away. He said, I'll walk with you a little bit. So he walks along beside us, and he's a man of color. And so we take maybe 10 steps, and he turns and looks at me and says, so what do you think about this whole election thing that's happening? And I thought, huh. Well, I thought about it for a minute and, told him that's not something I usually discuss. And then we proceeded to have about a 15-minute interaction about the upcoming election and his opinion of what's going on in the world of America, excuse me, what's going on in the United States of America. And I, shared my view of what's going on in the United States of America. And we began to talk, is my point. And so Paul, sitting right here, and Chester, who had never met each other before, who were of different skin colors, embarked on a conversation about all of the world that lasted for about 20 minutes. Excuse me, lasted for about an hour and 20 minutes. It was incredible. We walked on up the beach. We, up the walk path, past the restrooms, sit down on a bench, sit there and talked for a long time about the presence of God, about our lives as people who used to drink and use drugs, who no longer do that. We just had a really incredible conversation. And then after we'd been talking for about an hour or so, another man came up, and he was like real kind of forceful. And he said, what are you guys rapping about? I want to get into the conversation. So he jumped over the rock we were sitting on and sit down there and came on really aggressively. And he says, what are you guys talking about? And I just looked at him. I said, well, we're talking about the presence of God as ourselves. And he looked at me and he goes, What do you mean the president of God? What's that mean? And I said, oh yeah, and Chester's dog is barking. Um, and I said, we're not the president of God, the presence of God as ourselves. And he goes, are you saying that you're God? And I said, no, I'm not. I'm saying that the essence of myself, the soul, if you will, of myself, is the presence of God. I said, it's like I have a soul and I have something that carries it around, like a vehicle, like a car. And he looked at me kind of funny, and now he's starting to calm down. He's calming down. And he looked at me, he goes, you mean like a vessel? I said, yeah, exactly, like a vessel. He goes, so what you're saying is that who you are is the Christ inside you. And I said, that's true. And this is just the vessel that carries it around. I said, that's what we're talking about. Plus the fact that we haven't had to drink or do drugs for the last years. And he says, well, I don't have to drink or use drugs. I decided to quit that. I said, well, that's good. We're all in the same place. And so he stands up abruptly and says, okay, thanks a lot. And he walks away. And I looked at Chester and he looked at me. And, we said another 15 or 20 words to one another, realized that neither one of us had a pen or a piece of paper or anything. And we said, well, we'll meet again somewhere along the road. Yep, that's true. We shook hands, said, be well, and we walked on. What an experience. What a total experience. And so what it reminds me of is a quote from scripture from the Holy Bible, that is Matthew 10, 19 and 20. And what it says is, don't worry about what you are to say. When the time comes, the words you need will be given to you, for it is not you who will be speaking. It will be the Spirit of the Absolute speaking through you. So again, this is a very profound statement about the realization that, and it took me a long time to understand how important this is. But for me, it's incredibly important to realize that I am not this physical body. I was trained most of my life to believe that who and what I am is this physical body. Now, to begin with, I was taught who and what I am is this physical body with a soul, but still I was trained to believe that I was this physical body. And not only was I this physical body, but I was born as this physical body with inherent fault, or as it's referred to in Christendom, original sin. And what I realize today is that that is not so. That is not what it is. I am not this body with a soul. I am the essence of God wherever I am, who has been given a body, a vessel, a temple to house myself and to be mobile and physical on this three-dimensional planet, this planet of free will. And so I was looking at how easily it was, and my wife Debbie and I were talking about on our way home, and then a couple of times over the evening and through the night and up to this morning. We even talked about it again this morning, how exciting and how wonderful it is that, we could walk up on the sidewalk and just meet this man and start into this conversation and have this long, really beautiful conversation where we acknowledged who each other were. Debbie went back to the children after a while into the conversation, and it was just Chester and I. And we basically told each other our story of our lives. And that each of our stories were similar. Each of us ended up basically homeless at one point, both of us ended up in shelters and in recovery facilities at different points. And we had had very similar experiences at different times. And uh, Chester had come to realize himself. He's out in California, and his experience out there helped him to come to realize that his presence is the presence of God, just as I had come to realize that my presence is the presence of God. And we had those two things in common. We were able to support one another. We were able to experience the exchange of love between us. We were able to experience the exchange of divine consciousness between us. We were able to experience the realization of our own godliness between us. And we shared our energy to help the next person, the third person that showed up, so that the aggression completely went away, and the person calmed down, and the person was able to get up and walk away when it was clear to both Chester and I that the young man had shown up with an intention of stirring up something, but that just didn't happen. And so when I came, back to our home here, and I was resting and taking it all in stride, I began thinking about myself and how fantastic I am to have been so fortunate to have had that experience and to be just so grateful to experience that and to share it with someone. And it allowed me to start thinking about how when we watch movies and we see like wizards or mystics or whatever walking along the roads, and they come upon someone, they come upon a stranger, and they begin to talk with this stranger, and the two excuse me, and the two of them share between them, and they help each other along, and they help each other through, and I realized that that is just what happened between Chester and I. And so I looked up the word mystic to see what the definition of the word mystic is, and I was surprised. I did not expect what I found, but I'm going to share it with you today. And so, mystic from Merriam-Webster is a noun, a person who seeks by contemplation and self surrender to obtain unity with or absorption in the deity or the absolute, or who believes in the spiritual apprehensions of truths that are beyond the intellect. And I said, huh. And I read it again. Mystic, a noun, a proper noun. Excuse me, just a noun. A person who seeks by contemplation and surrender to obtain unity with or absorption in the deity or the absolute, or who believes in the spiritual apprehension of truths that are beyond the intellect. And I sat with that for a while. And I realized that according to this definition, who I am is a mystic. I have become a mystic. I have morphed into that reality. I am given the freedom of interaction with my fellow man. I am given the freedom to be able to discern who is and who is not a potential physical threat to me and to the ones I love. I'm able to look and be and say what is true and what is so for me. The I am, which is encased in this three-dimensional body, which has one and only one purpose on this life, on this planet, in this life, which is to share the knowingness that I am the presence of God wherever I am, and that each of you, each of us, are exactly the same. The freedom that lives in that understanding is beyond, is beyond, is beyond. And it didn't come by any outrageous stepping out. It came from the living of the life that I was given to live, that I chose and embraced and allowed that life to bring me to a place where I was able to acknowledge that I am the presence of God. So when we come to understand who we are, when I fully embrace who I am, I'm free. I am totally free. And I think anyone who is honest, when asked my keenest desire, will say, I desire freedom. I desire the freedom to be. Desire the freedom to embrace every aspect of this material plane that is available to me to embrace and to come to know it as myself. My brothers and sisters, my friends, we are all there is. There is nothing outside of that which I am. And the same is so for you. And when that becomes tangibly knowledgeable for each of us, which it does in time, independently though, it doesn't come in groups, comes independently, but when it arrives, the exhale happens and freedom begins. And for this man, for Paul Fitzsimmons, the ability to walk up to anybody, anywhere, under any circumstances, who is not a threat to my physical well-being or to my spiritual well-being, and share life and share the experience of being, and to find agreement and to find peace and to find understanding. And so today Again, I thank you for being here. I would like to leave us today with, I think I want to leave us with a prayer. I do. I found it. And so, the essence of who I am, the divine absolute that I am, is also referred to as divine love. And so, today I want to leave us with an acknowledgement of divine love as myself. And I would like you to try and embrace it as divine love as yourself. Divine love. My soul is filled with divine love. I am surrounded by divine love. I radiate love and peace to the whole world. I have conscious divine love. God is love, and there is nothing in existence but God and God's self expression. All men are expressions. Cancel that. All men and women and children and every tree, flower, frog, and bird are expressions of divine love. I have conscious divine love. All beings on this planet are expressions of divine love. Every being. And even though we don't realize it, a rock is a being. Nothing ever takes place but the self expressing of divine love. All this is true now. This is the actual case, the actual state of affairs. So I said a rock. So what I'd like you to think about is if you go to India, you will go to, you can go out into the pastoral lands and you can go to very simple people's lives and you will find they have a temple and the manifestation of the deity that they choose to enamor themselves with will be a rock. It'll be a rock sitting on the pedestal that has food for it and has incense for it and all that. Divine love. Nothing ever takes place but the self expressing of divine love. All this is true now. This is the actual case, the actual state of affairs. I do not have to try to bring this about, but I observe it already in being now. Divine love is the actual nature of being. There is only divine love, and I know this. I perfectly understand what divine love is. I have conscious realization of divine love. The love of God burns in me for all humanity. I express divine love to all whom I meet and to all whom I think of. I forgive everything that can possibly need forgiveness, positively everything. Divine love fills my heart, and all is well. I now radiate love to the whole universe, excluding no one. I experience divine love. I demonstrate divine love. And I thank the Absolute for this. And so it is. And so it is. And so it is. Realize the presence of God as yourself. I realize the presence of God as I am. I am realizes the presence of God as I am, which is you, and all is well. Namaste, namaste. I salute the presence of God as you. I salute the presence of God as myself. Be well. See you on Wednesday.